Who are you? Who? With that being said, no, I am not you two. And no, this is not an episode of CSI. This is just another episode of the Growth Times Infinity podcast. And speaking of that song, here's my question to you. This is the question of this video. Who are you becoming? We're going to talk about that. We're going to chop it up. We're going to tap into who are we becoming. That is the topic of discussion. We are breaking down chapter 2 of the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is the third episode of the series, Our Habitual Ways. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the first 2 episodes. Both videos, I broke down chapter 1. So once again, I would encourage you, I would invite you to go check out those last 2 videos. So now, let's get into episode number 3 of the series. Who are you becoming? Once again, that is the question. And we're gonna dive into chapter 2 of the book Atomic Habits. And the title of chapter 2 is How Your Habits Shape Your Identity and Vice Versa. So we're going to talk about our identity. How do we establish our identity, and what do our habits have to do with establishing our identity? So changing our habits can be very challenging. According to James Clear, the author of the book, changing our habits can be challenging for 2 reasons. Now, in chapter 2, the author James Clear, he talked about 2 reasons how changing our habits can be challenging. He listed 2 reasons, but he really focused on one of the reasons in chapter 2. And that's what we're going to focus on. So that one reason why changing our habits is challenging in chapter 2 is because we try to change the wrong thing. Now, what is that thing that we're trying to change? And why are we going about it the wrong way? Now, it could be the outcome, the end game. Now, we talked about that a little bit in regards to chapter 1, right? How we focus more on the goal than anything. But then in chapter 1, James Clear encourages us to focus as much on the system, if not more, than the goal. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to take it up one level, however you want to look at it. So we're going to dig a little deeper into the system, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, at least one reason why it is challenging to change our habits is because we try to change the wrong thing. So with that being said, there are 3 levels at which change can occur. The first level is changing our outcome, changing your outcome. And that has to do with the end result. It has to do with the results. It has to do with accomplishing the goal, right? So that's the first level in which change can occur. The second level at which change can occur is changing our process, changing your process. And that has to do with changing our habits and systems. Again, we talked about that in chapter 1. We broke it down, right? And that's what we want to do, right? We want to change our habits. We want to change our systems. Again, we want to focus as much on the system. Take a little bit of that focus away from the actual habit, but at the same time, we want to focus on that, but we're going to focus a little bit more on the system. Again, it's about changing the process. That's the second level at which change can occur. Now, the third level, again, we're gonna take it up a notch. We're gonna take it up a level. We're gonna take it to the next level. Again, but in the same time, we're gonna kind of dig in a little deeper into the system aspect of it. Now, what we talked about as far as chapter 1, the system, establishing a system, because we're all operating in a system in some form or fashion. So the system is what we're doing between the starting point and the finish line. So once again, the third level at which change can occur is changing our identity. And that has to do with our beliefs, how we perceive things, how we look at things, our outlook on life, our outlook on our journey. That's what changing our identity is all about. And where does that take place? Again, that takes place between the starting point and the finish line as well, as we are establishing our system, right? As we're working the system, you are forming your identity along with that. So that's why we're going to dig in a little deeper in regards to that. So as we go forward in chapter 2 of the book Atomic Habits, James Clear has a section which is titled The Two-Step Process to Changing Your Identity. Now, within that section of the chapter, it talks about how, according to a quote from James Clear in the book, it says your identity emerges out of your habits. So basically, the message that the author is trying to convey is our habits are connected to our identity. And that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Because with that, our habits are proof and it's evidence as well of our true identity. So basically, the habits that we're engaging in, it's a telltale sign of who we are. Point blank, period. We can't really get away from that, right? So if you are a smoker, you smoke pretty much consistently on a daily basis. So if you smoking a cigarette on a daily basis, you're a smoker. If you drink alcohol on a daily basis, if you're constantly drinking alcohol, if you're overindulging in alcohol, more than likely you are an alcoholic. And in turn, if you have a habit of reading books daily on a consistent basis, then more than likely you are a reader. Or along with that, if you have a tendency of habit of writing a journal, writing short stories, writing columns, writing books, you're more than likely identified as a writer, as an author. So it works both ways, right? So another quote in the book is the process of building habits is actually the process of becoming yourself. So as we are building our habits, as we're building new habits, we're actually working on solidifying our identity as well. Keep that in mind. And another quote that I would like to share with you in the book by James Clear, The Atomic Habits, is every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So as we go out throughout our life, as we go about our journey, and from time to time we'll come across that fork in the road, right? So you are trying to establish your identity, whatever you're trying to become, fill in the blank, whether you're trying to become a content creator, an entrepreneur, whatever you're trying to become. So you come to that fork in the road and you always come across a decision that you have to make. Whatever you're trying to identify yourself as, whatever you're trying to establish your identity, you come to that fork in the road, you're trying to figure out which way to go when you're making a decision. And you say, what would fill in the blank of the identity? What would you do in this situation? So if you're a person that's trying to live a healthy lifestyle, when it's time for lunch, are you going to eat something healthy or unhealthy? And you look at your options and you determine what's the healthiest option that you will consume. So you want to ask yourself, I'm trying to become a healthy person. I'm trying to live a better quality, a great quality of life. So I make my decision on what I'm going to eat for lunch based on that. Right? So there it is. Again, the quote says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So be mindful of the decision that you're making on a consistent basis when you come face to face as far as which way you need to go. And make sure that it aligns with your identity. Every decision you make, I just mentioned that every decision you make should be aligned with your identity. So always when it comes to your decision making, make sure that it's aligned with the person that you are trying to become. So as we go further into chapter 2 of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, we talked about the two-step process to change your identity. So here's the two-step process. The first step is to decide the type of person you want to be. Now, we really need to identify this. What is it that you want to become? That is the question of the video. Who are you becoming? Make up your mind. Make the decision. What type of person you want to be. And from there, whatever. Now, James Clear laid it out really good in the book. You know, you determine your outcome, right? And again, we talk about the 3 levels at which change can occur. Changing your outcome, changing your process, changing your identity. So we start with changing your outcome. Now, according to the author James Clear, he says changing your outcome, determine what you want your outcome to be, and from there you work backwards. So whatever the outcome is, you know, you want to, if you're an entrepreneur, you want your business to be very successful. You want it to be like a top 5, top 3. You want it to be at the top as far as the most productive business in your field. So work backwards. What do you have to do in order to, in order to accomplish that goal, in order to get that outcome? So you want to work backwards. That way you will be on your way to getting the desired outcome that you would like to achieve. So that is the first step, is to decide the type of person you want to become, that you want to be. Now, the second step is to prove it to yourself with small wins. So one of the quotes that I live by, now this is not my quote, and I know when I share this quote with you, I know many of you have heard this quote, and that quote is, don't talk about it, be about it. First step, decide the type of person you want to be. Tell yourself, this is who I want to be, whatever the case may be. Fill in the blank, and from there, it's time for you to win daily. That's what I would encourage you to do. Don't talk about it, be about it. Again, my challenge to you is be intentional in winning daily. Whatever that identity is, whatever you're doing throughout the day, make sure that it aligns with the person that you want to become. Strive to do something daily. Make sure that you are intentional in winning the day. And a lot of times it doesn't take much, especially if you're consistent over time. It doesn't take much for you to have that quote unquote small win for the day. So peace and blessings to you as you continue your journey. So let me know what you think about this. Who are you becoming? That is the question of this episode. So I got a call to action for you. I got some homework for you. And this is what I want to encourage you to do. It's time to do self-inventory. It's time to do some self-assessment. I want to encourage you to work on identifying who you want to become. Now, if you are already in the process of working on that, establishing your identity, and you're working on those small wins, and you're doing the things that you need to do between the starting point and the finish line, I applaud you. You are doing amazing. Keep it up. Keep going. But if you are a person where you feel like, I really don't know who I am, I really don't know who I'm becoming or who I want to become, then it's time for you really to do self-inventory on yourself. Analyze yourself. Just brainstorm and think about what is it that you truly want to become. That's something that I really want you to work on if you are that person. So as always, I appreciate you all tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment below. Once you do that homework, once you do that self-inventory, self-assessment, I would love to receive your feedback. So again, I invite you to leave a comment below. I am Reggie B, aka the Growth Advocate, and I appreciate you all tuning into this episode of the Growth Times Infinity podcast. And in regards to the Our Habitual Ways series, it goes on and on and on and on. We're gonna keep it going. So we just broke down chapter 2. Be on the lookout for the next video of the series when we start breaking down chapter 3. We're gonna keep it going, y'all. And until the next time, keep growing and keep going.